Today on the AI Operator, we're joined by two visionary brothers who are transforming the waste management industry through innovation technology. Brian and Charlie Dolan are the co-founders of DSQ Technology, a Pittsburgh-based company that's redefining how waste and recycling operations are managed. With a suite of products like Discovery, Pioneer, and Holler, DSQ Technology offers automation solutions that streamline invoicing, optimize compactor usage, and enhance dispatch operations for waste brokers, property managers, and haulers. Their journey began with Sequoia Waste Management, a brokerage firm they turned from near bankruptcy into a profitable enterprise before its sale in 2022. Drawing from that experience, they built DSQ Technology to address the inefficiencies that once faced firsthand. In this episode, we're going to explore how Brian and Charlie are leveraging AI and automation to bring unprecedented efficiency and transparency to an industry often overlooked in tech and innovation. Charlie, Brian, what's up, guys? Thank you so much for joining the AI Operator podcast. How are we doing today?
We're good. Thanks for having us.
Amazing. Well, I really am excited for this conversation because it's an industry that is, often overlooked. I would say it's a unique kind of niche industry, especially for, a lot of clients that we work with over here at RevPilot. And I'm really interested in the entrepreneurial journey. A lot of the people listening to this podcast are entrepreneurs themselves, either early stage or, kind of in your position. So it's always interesting to us to understand, how Sequoia Waste really led to DSQ. So Brian, Charlie, can you share the story of how your experience with Sequoia Waste led into the founding of DSQ Technology?
Chuck, you want to do rocks, paper, scissors for who goes first?
No, you got it. Take it away.
So long story short, the Sequoia company was a waste brokerage company that sat between the waste generator, so like your local mall or your office building or a multifamily apartment, and the waste hauler, your whoever you want to think of there, public services or whomever. It either had a relationship where it managed the contract and the invoicing, or it had some sort of management role in the middle. And what we found was that there was a lot of manual effort involved in that process, a lot of customer service work, a lot of invoice boxes showing up in USPS, 100 invoices at a time type of situation. And it was very difficult from that standpoint. So that's what started the effort to build the technology. And our technology, we built it wrong the first time. So then we scrapped that and started over. And then when we built it the right way, that ended up becoming what everybody sees now as Discovery. And at the same time, we ran into the need to see more at a site than we could see with the existing technology that was out there. And that's what created Pioneer. And so a lot of what you might experience today from our brand comes from actual customer interaction and pain points that they said, okay, well, how do you solve this for us? Figure this out. You guys go figure it out. And so what we came to in the, around 2020 and culminating in the sale in 2022 was that we were better at technology than we were at the operating business of brokerage. So and some of our customers didn't want us to be in brokerage anymore when we were the technology running their business. So, that was a divide and conquer thing. And we kicked that to the sale process, and that was successfully completed in 2022.
Amazing. I love that. Now, you mentioned there was some challenges with the first software. What was the biggest learning opportunity you guys had with that? I have a lot of friends that are, founders, SaaS founders. And I'm always interested in that journey of, first iteration to the actual product that's customer facing right now and doing so well for you guys. What were some of maybe the takeaways when building that first iteration?
I was blissfully uninvolved in that. Charlie, you want to answer that?
Yeah. I think software's a lot different to build today with the tools that are available, but underneath, whether you're building it today with the vibe coded agentic thing or traditionally, like domain design, super important. And I think we missed that on the first go through. First version of software that we built was actually originally modeled kind of in Salesforce tables with opportunities and accounts and all that kind of stuff from a CRM basis. And then trying to stick a pretty complex two-sided network, right? The relationship that we had with our customer and then the relationship that we had with the Holler and trying to keep all of that in sync through a CRM system like that was not easy. And for us, it wasn't successful. So we had to start over and it's built that from the ground up with, domain-driven design principles that related, a line item from a Holler invoice that we might receive to a line item that's going to get billed through to the customer. And, there's accounting layers in there and all these different things that add up. And so, came at it through trial and fire there, but have now been building that for just over 10 years now, I believe. And it's, one of the largest independent processors for waste and recycling data now.
Incredible. Charlie, how'd you get your start in technology?
Taking stuff apart and usually not putting it back together. So I lose all the screws. But always been interested in it. I wouldn't call myself a traditional software engineer or anything like that. Those guys are smarter than I am. But, in between the business process and the technical capabilities is, sort of where my mind works. And that's been a fun problem in this world where, Brian was given the history there on what we did with Sequoia. And that was, thought to be, going to start out as a technology company. What we really found was that we became a payments company, but it was a really manual, old school industry. So we had to figure out, how to automate more and more of that to keep up. And so, it's been a long journey to get there, but having a lot of fun doing it.
I love that. I find a lot of people in the software world, especially at the higher level, the executive level, the founder level, a lot of times not traditionally trained. They were more tinkers and just, very curious about the systems. So that's pretty cool. Now, Holler focuses on dispatch and routing. How does that actually enhance? Because I'm like completely, this is a world I don't operate in. How does that enhance operations for companies? And what sets it apart from other solutions in the market right now?
Let me take that. So Holler, as it exists today, is actually pretty narrowly focused software. And I divide the two terms you had. You had dispatch and routing. It's interesting. Routing really applies to what we call commercial service or residential service. And those are actual routes, right? Where you follow a map and you do all kinds of crazy things. What Holler's lined up on is more dispatch, which is point A to point B, taking a bin from here to there, back to the landfill, dropping a new bin off, that kind of work. And so what most of Holler's focus is on is converting people who are using pen and paper process to their first digital platform. And so it's a very easy to use, easy to onboard, easy to convert type of environment. And it's not layers and layers and layers of complexity because people are converting from something that to them is very simple. They're used to it. They're familiar with it. And so that's how I would draw that distinction between what I think the market might perceive it as and what we have positioned it as.
Got it. Do you guys, something that comes to mind is kind of the principles like Lean Six Sigma, and operating, lean manufacturing. And when I think of like routes, I'm guessing that has a huge impact on, how much money it's costing and the actual margins that you have inside of that. Does your software help support that? Do you guys have stuff in there? Like, what is your opinion on those kind of principles?
I think you're right, but we just haven't gone after that piece of the world, right? There's a lot of softwares out there that have a longer track record that are in that space, and it's a different animal, right? And so we've focused on a different side of the equation than that traditional routing mentality. Not to say we'll never go there, but it is one of those things. It's like we have a strategy here. When you talk about Six Sigma and those kind of things, in our world of software development, we go where our paying customers take us mostly, right? Because ultimately, if someone's paying us to do something, it must be worthwhile for them to have it done. And so we're very selective, very restrictive on building something that no customer is asking us to do right now. No paying customers asking us.
Very good answer. Very good answer. I love that. Well, let's lighten up the mood a little bit. What is, Charlie? What's your favorite AI tool? Like, if you, it doesn't have to do with work, or it's just in general. Like, what is an AI tool you actually enjoy using in your daily life?
Yeah, I'm tinkering right now with a thing called browser use. If you haven't come across that, it's very cool. You can give it a prompt. For example, I think a lot of the examples they use are like ticket ordering and grocery ordering and stuff like that, which are a little goofy, but it kind of gets the point across. You could say, go to walmart.com and here's my shopping list, and complete that and have a checkout system. And I don't know if that's making a huge difference in anybody's life yet. I think ChatGPT has something similar called an operator, if you've heard of that.
Yeah.
But it's really cool to see how it works. It's open source, so you can kind of click through it. And as you watch, you can give it the prompt and then watch the Chrome browser spin up on the other side of the screen. And it's interesting to see, we use our eyes, we use obviously our own brains to interpret and read and comprehend. And this thing has, an emulated version of that. It draws a lot of boxes on the screen once the page loads, and then it kind of ranks. Well, okay, I've drawn a red box and a purple box and a whole rainbow of boxes. What's the right box to accomplish the goal? And then it's kind of sitting there recursively thinking. And it's interesting to watch. That's something I think's been for a long time. We had original ChatGPT stuff come out, and it was a cool little parlor trick kind of gimmick. But now you're starting to see some of these things really have utility and be able to do some stuff to lighten the workload for what we're trying to get done.
Yeah, it's pretty wild. Have you played with Manus at all?
I have. Not a ton, because been trying to play with stuff that's open source so I could use that for our own stuff. But yeah, super impressive. Just like, can't imagine how many tools are buried inside that thing to be able to call on.
It's it's pretty wild. What about you, Brian? I know you're more of the there's got to be something you like to play with.
Well, I use Grok a lot. We have an OpenAI instance inside the company that I use for, like, right now I'm working on training a company voice, because I spend a fair amount of time reading, editing, and adapting posts that our marketing team comes up with. And they're very good at what they do, but they're starting from the basis of generic AI. And generic AI is much too Holler denigrating, and has too many, let's just say it has too much of the internet in it, right? And so our company voice is much more of Charlie and I's thinking. And so I'm trying to train that to be a resource that the marketing team can ask, okay, is this how we would say that? And if that comes back positively, great, they move on. That'll cut down a lot of time from them and me having to adjust our language to be our own voice.
Yeah. You bring up a really good point there that I want to expand on, which is the loss of original ideas, right? Some of the greatest marketing campaigns of all time were original ideas. They were something that someone had thought of pretty much on their own, right? And proved to work. And we have a lot of those use cases over the years. There's some incredible copywriters, throughout history. And one of my fears with AI, especially in marketing, is the loss of original ideas, right? That new campaigns will lack innovation because we're so dependent on what was. What is your thoughts?
I am not worried about that for us, because we see that as well, right? And it's something that we actively, we use AI work to edit and to sort of augment what we're doing. But our marketing, our sales, our efforts come from our own, hearts and minds type of mentality. I do think that there's a lot of stuff that comes that people think is novel, but when you are a student of history in any capacity, you start to realize, like, well, somebody did that before, right? Somebody did something like that somewhere else. And so one of the things I think that is the best thing people can realize about marketing especially is, how do you take something somebody did in another vertical and reimagine it for this vertical? So, like, I love cars, and I pay attention to a lot of car advertisements. I love that old series of Volkswagen advertisements and Porsche advertisements from the 60s and 70s type of era that are, maybe inappropriate today.
Yeah, that's awesome. It really is cool to look back on the history of marketing, at least if you have a marketing and sales brain that interests you. But the amount of incredible campaigns that have been run over the last 150 years always blows me away, and there's so much to learn from that. When it comes to internal, Charlie, what kind of AI are you guys focusing on? You obviously don't have to delve out the secret sauce, but anything that you think is helpful for other organizations that are, it could be the kind of how you think about AI, or actual technologies that you are kind of leaning into as you guys scale and grow and improve your product.
Yeah. I think practical things for any company is just to try and find some workflows that I bucket them into two things. Something that you're doing today that you want to get automated. That's maybe a little more straightforward because you understand the problem. Arm your team with some tools on that. I think the first hurdle that you'll bump into is going to be, I didn't work, doesn't work very well. That's usually a clear indication that you might not be doing something right. You got to learn more rather than just discount it. And then once you've kind of automated some little workflow, whether that's just a simple prompt engineer or something like that, start to find something that you're not able to do today that you wish you were able to do, but you're bandwidth constrained or you've been technologically constrained, you couldn't do that, and try and automate that, because that's when it gets really exciting. It's like, well, I think for so long people have been thinking about AI tools as how am I going to not have to hire more people or something like that, which means doing the same job that you're doing right now. And I think there's just a big capacity increase that you can get from the thing that has always been on your wish list that you've never gotten to and figuring that out. And you can do a lot of that with, I think, pretty standard off-the-shelf, software as a service tools, whether they're from OpenAI or Anthropic or, vertical SaaS past that. And I think that's applicable to a broad spectrum of businesses. And I think if, on the more technical side, we've been testing some different, like, instead of traditional classifiers, doing our own reinforced learning LLMs to be able to do classification. It's pretty cool because it was a lot of work to get semantic understanding into more traditional models. And these do a really great job of that out of the gate. We're working on a model right now. The compactor monitors that we have are more or less like a super hyper tuned energy meter, like you might see in a control panel with a magnet around it to tell if your HVAC system's on. It's similar to that, but in a waste compactor. And we're taking a look at, basically taking the fundamental technology of an LLM, transformers, and then having that do predictions of all the data sets that are coming in, which is kind of a, different way to solve that problem. And we're hoping that it's a little bit more accurate and easier to maintain. So, kind of on both ends there, the more technical and the more approachable, but just, tough for somebody like myself who wants to do it all to stay focused on one of them and get it over the goal line. Because there's a lot to do.
You want that. That's been actually a big talking point inside of our organization, which is, we have to be very careful of staying true to who we are and, not going down. I mean, it's so easy to, especially with, like you said, the vibe coding, all this, so easy to go down the path of just spinning up, another AI agency or things like that. And it's just not who we are. And I don't want to become that. I think it can support us. I think we can build really cool stuff. But at the end of the day, our organization is about sales operations, right? And how we take AI and sales process and technology and provide that to our clients. Something you mentioned, though, that I really like is the idea of creating things to solve problems that you haven't yet been able to solve. And I've had a lot of conversations in our organization about that as well, because I feel like right now a lot of AI is limited to our own creativity. And where that becomes really fun is when you really step outside of the box of what is known or what has been known and possible to you before today. And opening your mind. Like I had one the other day. I've been doing a 30-day challenge where I build an AI agent every day. And it was cool because the first 5, I was like, oh yeah, this is easy. I'm just building stuff. I get to like 7, 8, not too bad. 9, 10, I'm like, I'm running out of ideas, guys. Like, what do we do? But then it really kind of pushed again that innovation to be like, man, what if we could do this? Like, have we been looking at this problem entirely different because we have a new set of rules to be able to solve it? And that was really incredible. One the other day was, data is always hard to analyze, or it's hard to visualize because you always need, and Charlie, this, you need a clean data set. And a lot of our clients are smaller. They don't have a data scientist, right? They don't have someone to go clean data sets. And a lot of times they're not managing maybe their CRM as well as they need to be. So the data set that gets into a dashboard is not always the cleanest. So then you have inaccuracies. And one of the things that I randomly was like, this would be really cool. What if I could just like text what if I could just text someone and it would just review all of our, numbers from last month and tell me stuff. So basically we just hooked up Telegram to, Google Sheet, that has all of the data in there. And the best part was I didn't have to turn it into a dashboard. It's good enough to look at all the data, analyze it, and then provide what I needed. So now I got this just in my pocket that I can just send it a text message and, hey, how many sales did we make last month? And what was the highest selling product? And boop, pops right over to me. So that creativity is fun though. So
you notice in your numbers of how many agents you're able to create, it's another 80-20 problem, right? And that's what I think is going to be the case with AI is that we're all experiencing what I would call the 20% right now, where 20% of what AI is going to be able to do is what gets done in this next year or two, right? Stuff we do today that we can automate, the 80% is where the difference gets made, right? What are the creative things we come up with that we say, I would love to be able to do this, but I don't have enough time, bandwidth, manpower, horsepower to do it. Okay. Have this thing do it. Okay.
Yeah. On the area of like revenue operations, stuff like that, in this waste world, there's not a great way to get lists of leads. It's never been easy. There's not a great centralized directory of who runs the 15 to 30 probably open top hauling companies in every geographic market. And like web scraping and crawling has been a little bit tough to get that data because some of these websites aren't necessarily up to standards and they're maybe a little older or a little bit less detailed.
Or they only exist in a Facebook group, right?
Right, which has been really awesome it doesn't solve the Facebook part, but some of these open source tools are really good at like using language models to, again, back to browse use, scrape some of these things, get you phone numbers, emails, names, and stuff like that. And in the past, that would have been either hiring somebody maybe overseas for a couple cents or $1 per lead to kind of get that built into a list and take a couple weeks. And now you can spin that up just off of a lead list and say, hey, look, go use Google Serper search and crush through this list and you get it in the morning and it's just as good as you'd hope. So really increasing the capacity on some things like that.
That's awesome. Brian, if AI could just solve one problem for you, number one problem, what would that be right now?
So I've been trying for 10 years to figure out how to have something automatically look for a particular piece of data I need from Google Maps, right? And I posted about this as no secret. It's impossible to find a compactor on Google Maps using AI. I've tried, doesn't work because there's context clues to it. Like if it's near this, it looks like that, and there's a piece of concrete, and it's all visible in my brain, and I can find them like this. But when I try to train an AI on it, it's like, okay, here's 65,000 boxes. None of them are compactors, right? So like, the ability for it to start to understand an image in context of the things around it, that's going to be really powerful when the time comes.
Wow. Okay. Well, for whoever's listening to this, if you want to go earn some money, maybe you build Brian his Google scraper for compactors. But I know we're quickly approaching time. This conversation's been amazing so far. Now, DSQ has grown to what I believe about a 30-person team right now. Correct me if I'm wrong. Without external funding. Is that accurate?
Yep.
What strategies have you guys employed to scale sustainability and maintain profitability? Because that is a huge feat. And a lot of our listeners are bootstrapping. They are scaling their companies without funding. And that's a really impressive feat.
Well, I would caveat that impressive feat with a couple of things. We had good opportunity in terms of where we came from in life, right? We weren't, we had good starts from the beginning. And then when we were able to sell the Sequoia company, we didn't take much money out of that. Most of that went back into what is now DSQ, right? So we retained that in this world. And so bootstrapping for us.
Lambos.
Sorry?
So you didn't go buy Lambos and some
No.
helicopter.
But if you follow us online, Charlie and I, have kids and wives, and I race vintage sports cars. So like, we do fine, but at the same time, from our world, we've reinvested, I'd call it 98 cents of every dollar back into what this thing is, because we see that in the long road game that's out there, it's easy to compare your moment today with somebody else's year 30, and we're only on year 10, right? We're truly 14 years into the journey, but we're probably really on year 10 of what we're trying to build. And so that ability to reinvest and delay gratification, continuously delay gratification, and there's different times, but Charlie's cheap. He's so cheap. Look at his. I mean, I don't know if you're going to post a video about this, but look at his setup in there. I mean, he's in a white box.
I have a table that I stole from somewhere else in the office, and a bunch of cardboard boxes from our old office that I haven't unpacked yet. So one day I'll get around to it.
I love that, Brian. Thanks for sharing that, man. Yeah, I mean, the reinvestment is huge. It's something that I can get better at. Is that piece myself actually. And that actually kind of leads me into the next question, because you mentioned you guys have been around for about 10 years, right? You got a long shelf life. You guys are going for the long run. How do you see DSQ technology influencing like the broader waste management industry in the next 5 to 10 years?
Go ahead, Chuck. Let's see what you got.
So we're compiling, I think, a couple different key aspects of the market. Discovery handles a lot of data processing and is usually a little bit more enterprise. So those enterprises have a lot of demand for purchasing waste services and paying waste bills and stuff like that. And it's really good at that. We have Holler now, which is helping the people doing the work, driving trucks around and stuff like that. And as Brian mentioned earlier, that one's super unique for what we need, because there are established companies and tools and processes for doing routed systems and front load things. But where Holler comes in is it's Friday at 2:48 where I am right now. Our discovery customers are going to start getting calls from their customers, buildings that generate garbage, saying, the hauler didn't come this week, something's going on, a storm rolled in, I need you to get bins here quickly. And so our ability to have those two systems talk and play off of one another and provide a better experience for the person who's doing the work, the hauler, they're getting qualified leads really quickly, to the people paying for it and managing their garbage on the discovery side, is pretty interesting. And we're, I would say, more akin to like a Zillow is for real estate, but we are for understanding what's going on in the waste world, for who's able to do work where and when, and starting to get into what their capacity is. And that unlocks just some really cool user experience things, where in the past this was all phone call based, all email based, searching around, whether it's Google or Angie's List. And it's not necessarily rocket science.
Or they had a guy. They got a guy. They text their guy.
Yeah, they got somebody. And so like nothing that we're saying is that like eye-opening or crazy. We've seen markets, digital marketplaces and stuff like that before. But it's fun to apply this into this space and use some of the leading tools to do that. And we think we're doing a good job of it. And I think that'll have it's already having a big impact, and I think a bigger one coming.
I'd add another piece of color to that a lot of the industry we operate in works as silos, right? So they're all separate pieces of technology, and there's very little platform approach to this world. There's some large enterprise type things that are multi-$100 million type systems, but there's not much enterprise beneath that. And so we positioned ourselves to be a good enterprise alternative in that space over the next few years. So that's a
Amazing.
purposeful positioning by us.
Awesome. That makes a ton of sense. All right, rapid fire. I got to let you guys go, but we got 3 more questions. Charlie, what's one common misconception about waste management, the technology, or waste management technology that is, I cannot think, guys. Oh my gosh. What's one common misconception about waste management that technology is helping to change?
I think that people have a misconception that, and I think this is still around a little bit, that everything should be on demand. Not everything should be on demand. And I think they've done a really great job, Hollers, of, I think to one of your earlier questions, finding the efficiencies in routing and in different systems and processes. I mean, some of these trucks are driving around the city. It's more efficient to pick up the bin that's there on the way by. And a lot of those systems do a great job of doing that. And I think that just feels wildly different than when we maybe got started in this 10 years ago and Uber was a big thing. And everyone was like, well, I want my garbage can on demand every single time for the small containers. And so it's interesting to see that. Now that's separate from our point-to-point type of work that we do on the compactors and Holler. But the technology's finding its use case in the niche, in the business process that it needs to, even inside the waste industry, whether that's point-to-point or routing. And it's been cool to see that. And then, next step past that, there's all this awesome sorting and air sorting machines, laser sorting machines, and crazy stuff that most of us don't see when we put the trash out at the curb or in the back dumpster.
Fascinating. Yeah,
it's crazy. So yeah, I mean, there's a lot of layers of impressive technology that are out there.
Incredible. Yeah, these niche industries are so, most people just, like you said, take your trash out and that's the end of it. They never really think about that whole process. I mean, there's so many steps just with what you guys are doing. It's really interesting how many organizations are, have their hand in making that process happen. Brian, I got one for you. For entrepreneurs looking to innovate in traditional industries, what advice would you offer based on your journey with DSQ?
Get your hands dirty, because until you get your hands dirty, you don't really understand the problem. So I'd give you a quick story. In the Strip District here in Pennsylvania, when we were running Sequoia Waste Solutions, there was a customer we had, and they had built an apartment complex next to a produce delivery type thing. And so everything around it was industrial buildings. So the hauler would come at 3 a.m., 4 a.m., maybe 5. The new regulation said they had to come after 6. So I had to stay up all night to sit there and wait for the hauler to come and say, hey, can you follow this regulation, please? It's like, that was me getting my hands dirty, understanding, okay, how difficult is it to get this machine that runs for the past 30 years to change and respect this new regulation, right? And so until you get deep into something and understand your customer's pain, I don't think you can build an effective product.
We've climbed around a lot of dumpsters too.
There you go. I love it. I think anyone in my company would say I'm pretty good at getting my hands dirty. It's partially because I'm curious enough and I enjoy the work that we do. But I'm a big believer that if I can't in some way fully understand what is happening and how to do what we do, I can't lead to the level that I should be able to. Obviously delegation is important, and that's a huge role of any CEO or founder. And but I think there is some level of getting your hands dirty. So I couldn't agree more. Amazing. Well, last question: either you've been to the Waste Management Open?
No.
Oh my gosh, I thought that would be like a definite yes.
We've been to Waste Expo, and this year the U.S. Open's coming to Pittsburgh in Oakmont. So we'll treat that as our own Waste Management Open, I guess.
There you go. Awesome. Well, Charlie, Brian, thank you so much for coming on the AI Operator podcast today. Thank you for pouring into my audience and sharing your insights. And I learned a ton from this conversation and sparked a lot of interest in some of these different industries, and just it's really cool to see how much is happening in completely different worlds of business. So we really appreciate it. If we can help you in any way, let us know. And if you could, can you shout out where people can find you guys? I think we have LinkedIn. I know a website as well, but if you could just shout out where we can find you.
We get the most traction on LinkedIn. So I would say come follow us on LinkedIn. Charlie posts less often, but they're more insightful or more technological. I post way more often, and you can be the judge of my content. Go ahead. I take all criticisms.
Amazing. We'll put your LinkedIn URLs in the descriptions of your listening, and you want to check out Charlie Dolan and Brian Dolan and the journey that they are on to revolutionize waste management. Go ahead and give them a follow. And yeah, guys, I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks, Jordan.
Of course.